If you live in Washington, D.C., congratulations. You've just become the first city in modern American history to have your police department put in timeout by the President of the United States. In August 2025, Donald Trump ordered a federal takeover of DC's police. 2,000 National Guard troops, federal agents on the streets, tanks of rhetoric rolling through neighborhoods where the crime rate is actually at its lowest level in decades. The only thing scarier than crime in the streets is freedom under lock and key. So Trump has, decided that the movements of consolidating power in the last 8 months is not enough. And this was all written in their Project 2025 handbook that we all tried to tell you that this was going to happen. But now it's starting to affect other people. And what I mean by other people, in the DC area, there's a lot of wealth in DC. What's in DC is a lot of wealthy, liberal, and conservative white people. And in this country, no movement for righteousness or conclusion to righteousness and movements happens until the majority starts to take action. That's just been the case throughout our history. The marginalized can speak up, they can yell and scream, but it is not until people in the majority start to take notice and start to move in that action does true progress start to happen. And we are starting to see it in Washington, D.C. as people are protesting. People that live in Washington, D.C. are starting to protest. They're not rioting, but they're letting their voice be known that this occupation is not what they want. So I put on my author hat, and I haven't done it in a while. And I wrote something that's been in my thoughts for like the last week and a half. And I just sat down and I wrote it. And I think it's okay. What I'm going to do is I'm going to read what I wrote. That's my opinion about this entire thing. Put on my writer and teacher's hat. And I'm also going to post it online. It's going to be on unsolicitedperspectives.com in the blog section. I know I haven't written in a long time. I really enjoyed writing this. I really enjoy writing. I don't know why I stopped. Maybe I'll start to pick it back up as a hobby. I'm just really busy. But I took the time, and this was this came to me relatively quickly. It didn't take me a long time to write. But I'm going to read it to you guys, and I think it will effectively explain everything that's going on now. So for those people who are on the other side of the country or on the other side of the earth, because we have people that are in other countries listening and watching. Thank you, by the way. I appreciate it. This is going to give you a perspective, a firsthand perspective of what's going on here in DC because I live here and I'm experiencing it. So, law and order or just order over law? If you live in Washington, D.C., congratulations. You've just become the first city in modern American history to have your police department put in timeout by the President of the United States. In August 2025, Donald Trump ordered a federal takeover of DC's police. 2,000 National Guard troops, federal agents on the streets, tanks of rhetoric rolling through neighborhoods where the crime rate is actually at its lowest level in decades. That's right. The city is safer than it's been in years, but somehow Trump says crime is rampant. That's like calling the fire department because your microwave popcorn burned. Not saying that I ever did that, but maybe. And of course, he showed up in person, flanked by cops, smiling for the cameras, hinting that he'd bring in the military if necessary. A 30-day operation. But let's be real. When was the last time government power politely stepped back after 30 days? And DC is just the first stop. Trump already named Chicago as probably next, then New York City, and his son floated Portland, Oregon. because nothing says clear and present danger like anarchists at a poetry reading. But let's look at who's being targeted. Washington, D.C., Mayor Muriel Bowser, Black woman, Democrat. Chicago, Mayor Brandon Johnson, Black man, Democrat. New York City, Mayor Eric Adams, Black man, Democrat. Big cities, Democrat-led, Black leadership. You don't need a magnifying glass to see a pattern. Here's the twist. If Trump really wanted to crack down on America's most dangerous cities, he wouldn't start with DC or New York or Chicago, because 13 of the 20 cities with the highest murder rates are in Republican-led states. States like Mississippi, Alabama, Missouri, Tennessee, Louisiana, places where the homicide rates make DC look like it's running senior citizens book club. So why isn't a National Guard in Jackson, Mississippi or Memphis, Tennessee? Because this isn't about crime. It's about control. It's about spectacle. And it's about who gets painted as dangerous. History has receipts. Every time government bends the rule to give police more power, human rights take a hit. Civil liberties erode. Stop and frisk in New York, where millions of innocent Black and Latino residents stopped for no reason. Excessive force rises. We've seen it in racial justice protests with pepper spray, tear gas, and rubber bullets. It happened right here in Washington, D.C. I was out there earlier in the day. I came home to work. A lot of my friends were pepper sprayed and tear gassed, all while the president, Donald Trump, held a Bible upside down. Political dissent gets crushed. From Jim Crow to the war on drugs, law and order has often meant law against certain people, order over others, and accountability gone. When police power expands, your avenues to fight back shrink. So when Trump takes over DC police, it's not just about one city. It's about normalizing a precedent where federal power steamrolls local control, wherever it's politically convenient. But just a few miles up the road, there's a completely different story. Baltimore Mayor Brandon Scott didn't call in troops, didn't militarize his streets, didn't pose for photo ops with Humvees. He treated crime like a public health crisis. He targeted those most at risk of violence, offered support, intervention, and second chances, invested in housing, jobs, youth programs, and trauma treatment. He built trust, not just tougher laws. And what were the results? Homicides down 28%. Non-fatal shootings down 19%. Baltimore's lowest crime rate in 50 years. 50 years. No troops, no tanks, no takeover. Just strategy, data, and community. So let's call this what it is. Trump's crime wave takeover isn't about safety. It's about power. It's about image. It's about race. Because when cities with Black mayors and large Black populations are painted as lawless, it becomes easier to justify extraordinary force. But Baltimore proves there's another way. You don't need soldiers on corners to keep people safe. You need investment, partnership, vision. At the end of the day, the real question isn't about crime rates. It's about democracy. Do we want law and order that means soldiers in the streets and rights in the shredder? Or do we want safety built on justice, opportunity, and trust? Because once you trade in your freedoms for someone else's definition of order, you might not get them back. And the only thing scarier than crime in the streets is freedom under lock and key.
Join the conversation and follow the Unsolicited Perspectives podcast on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you get your audio podcasts.